All right, the debt drama continues today. Can Speaker Boehner rebound from yesterday's embarrassment? Are there enough votes in the House to pass anything he comes up with at this point? Can the president get back into the fight? Let's ask our political panel. Kevin Madden is a GOP strategist. He served as a spokesman for Mitt Romney during the 2008 presidential campaign. Also had a little past with Mr. Boehner. Karen Finney is the former communications director for the Democratic National Committee, and she's an MSNBC political analyst. And Perry Bacon is a White House reporter for the Washington Post, colleague that I see in there when we're having a little beat-up time on Mr. Carney. Perry, let me start with you. On this, you guys have been doing some outstanding reporting in the Washington Post. You guys today talk about that Reid and Boehner are talking, that they're actually pretty close. Where do things stand as far as you guys know?
It looks like they are moving toward, they're having a lot of discussions, and they are moving towards some kind of broader, they are moving toward, they're much closer. Their two plans are not as far away as the President Obama and Boehner were very far away. Those two people have, Reid and Boehner are much closer where we're headed in the next few weeks, I think.
Kevin Madden, you, like I said, before you were a Mitt Romney guy, you were a John Boehner guy. You were spokesman for John Boehner. Today, this is always an embarrassment. I mean, in many ways, the CBO coming out, making him having to rejigger the numbers, that actually helped, didn't it? Because it caught him an extra day.
Look, and the other thing people have to remember about John during this whole, as you watch this whole showdown be unveiled, John is one of the most methodical, most disciplined politicians that I've ever worked for, and he is looking towards the long view on this. He is not going to get very rattled by a CBO estimate that has 850 instead of the 1.2.
In fact, you said that, I find it fascinating. Congresswoman Emerson on here, she sort of said, hey, look, he's not changing the cuts.
No.
He's changing the debt ceiling simply because he doesn't want to get too far away from Reid.
Right. And what he's going to do, and he's going to go back, and he's going to do what he can to find the right number so that he can start to satisfy his conference. And then he's going to go back to what he's probably been doing this entire time, which is growing the vote, finding where is one more vote, one more vote, one more vote, so it adds up to something that he can actually bring to the floor and something that he can sell within his conference.
Karen Finney, Senator Schumer said they're not going to start the clock. They are not going to try to jam a vote in yet in the Senate, that they still want to use it as sort of the last gasp vehicle. But at some point, everybody's looking for leverage here.
Sure.
But at some point, when should Democrats say, you know what, no, start the clock, let's go, let's try to pass this bill? The CBO score today is going to look good in comparison. They have more cuts than Boehner.
That's right.
And even when you take away the war count, if you don't count the savings from the wars, it is still higher. So they have arguably the upper hand on spending cuts.
But I think we're still in a place in terms of what people are saying publicly. Schumer has to say that publicly, but privately, this idea that these guys are actually a little bit closer together, part of that is because John Boehner, Harry Reid, Mitch McConnell, they are pragmatists, and Nancy Pelosi. They know at the end of the day they got to get something done, right? So they're just at the point where they're trying to figure out, yes, they're still looking at the long term, but they're also looking at, okay, how are we going to get this done? Whereas, the president is still somewhat talking about the big deal, the grand bargain, because frankly, for his politics, that's what he needs to do. But for these guys on the Hill, at a point, they're like, okay, brass tacks, right? What do you got? What can you put on the table? What can you put on the table? How are we going to get there?
Perry, it seems the linchpin here is Mitch McConnell, right? He said yesterday he's against the Reid plan, and it was sort of a signal, look, we're not going to help you pass this thing. But at some point, he may signal if he sees that Boehner's running into trouble and he can't get the 217 at this point first, he will speak, he will act, and he is the guy here to sort of solve this.
You saw him yesterday saying we need to get it done.
Let his people go.
Exactly. You saw yesterday saying we need to get something done. People need to move past what a perfect deal is and move toward what a deal that's achievable is. I mean, today's big because we'll see where the votes are in the House, though. That'll tell you what McConnell has to do and where the gap is. Well, today we'll know at the end of the day how far they are from the 217, 218.
I was just going to say very quickly, Kevin, that's the key. And if Boehner, he'll never bring this vote to a floor if it's going to lose, will he?
No, that's right. And the one thing you have to remember about John is that he listens to everybody.
If he knows it's not there, he'll be like...
He listens to everybody within the conference, but he also has a really good ear for where the caucus is. He knows where there's some Democrat votes as well, should he lose 10, 15 votes on his side.
We're going to put you under real pressure coming up after the break. The inevitability campaign of Mitt Romney. Karen, Perry, Kevin, stick around. Let's bring back our panel now. Kevin Madden, Karen Finney, and Perry Bacon. No, I'm not going to let you in on the joke we were just having. It was nothing. It was all good. All right. It's the inevitability campaign of one Mitt Romney. Here's what's happened in the last few days. He was at a Virginia Beach fundraiser. Speaking of Virginia, is what we were talking about off the break. And he was floating VP candidates. He talked about Bob McDonnell. He was in Virginia. Ding, ding, ding. Chris Christie, New Jersey Governor Marco Rubio. I have a feeling those are the standard answers whenever you travel. You say Christie, Rubio, and whatever, and the leading Republican of whatever state you travel in. And then this up, though, Kevin Madden, this was something Romney said a couple weeks ago during a stop in New Hampshire that got some people raising their eyebrows.
I'll probably be back in 4 years.
Oh, that'd be great. That'd be great.
This time it'll be a larger group and we'll probably have Secret Service.
Well, there you go. So Kevin Madden. All right. And you know, the other thing is he's campaigning today in Ohio. He doesn't, Iowa, Ohio. Apparently maybe the travel agent got it lost. We thought you said Ohio, sir. This inevitability campaign, it can work for a time.
Right.
Worked for George W. Bush, but he still had a scare at the end. Didn't work for Hillary Clinton. This is a dangerous game here.
Well, first of all, I don't think he's really on an inevitability tour. I think what's really important about those states you have to remember is that those.
But he's trying to stay out of. He's trying to lower expectations.
Right. But those are states where he's actually raising money, and when he's there, he can also make an economic argument. And those are good states to make it. If you look at places like Pennsylvania and Ohio, those are important middle battleground states where the economy is still sluggish, and you can take the argument to President Obama. And that is the most important thing that he's doing right now, which is that Republican primary voters, whether they're in Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, or wherever, their biggest concern right now is they want somebody who's going to take the fight to Obama on the #1 issue, and that's the economy. And that's why these voters, they see that, they hear it, that message gets back. You see it in the headlines.
We should mention you do not work for Mitt Romney.
Right.
You are, though, a public supporter of his. Karen Finney, though, 20 years ago, you could do these things, and when you fundraise, you actually didn't have to do public events. He brings up a good point. Right? He's in these states because he's raising money. He's not in these states because he's campaigning in them, but you do feel the need to campaign.
Sure.
And base voters don't like it, right? Base voters told Hillary Clinton when she tried to do this, hey, stop it. You're not the inevitable nominee. This is where it gets tough.
It is, although my read on what he's doing is more of the I'm going to have enough money to just wait it out strategy is really what we're seeing, right? And that seems to be the plan. I was going to say my former boss tried inevitability, didn't work. Another candidate in 2004 tried electability. That didn't exactly work. That was John Kerry. And those are the two themes you've actually heard floated.
Well, eventually, though, it did work. It did work for him. He did get the nomination at the end.
And then had that work out in the general election.
He lost the general for a lot of different reasons.
There's a lot of other reasons. Harry Bacon, really fast, I want to put up, we teased this. Crossroads is up. This is the Republican group, Ed Gillespie, Karl Rove group. They're up with a new ad. Quick clip of it we can show really fast. We won't play the audio because we're running out of time, but it hits them on the debt argument, and it talks about President Obama, and they're trying to get him to sort of own the dysfunction in Washington, even as it is Republicans that are taking on more water politically when you look at the polls.
This is smart. I think this is where the Romney's been saying some of these things. All the Republican candidates are saying the same thing as well, which is basically the Obama's fault. This whole mess is Obama's fault. It's a smart argument. Whether voters believe it or not is different, but it's a good way to tie in what's happening now into 2012.
The other thing, very fast, Kevin, the China scare tactics here. It's a fine line to be walking here because they're a business partner for the United States of America.
But if you look at
I know it scares voters.
Many of these persuadable voters in states, and I'll tell you, whether they're Democrat or Republican, I was very struck in Pennsylvania, a liberal Democrat in Philadelphia and a conservative Republican in Western PA, they all agree on China.
By the way, they both you see them in primary campaigns. Both sides use. All right, very quickly, shameless plugs, Karen Finney.
Column in the Hill on Grover Norquist, the unelected head of the Republican Party. Just want to remind people about his history.
Rushland was going to have something to say about that.
I know he will.
Great story in the Wall Street Journal today about why companies are not hiring. The big issue we're not talking about is, of course, unemployment and job creation. Great story in the Journal about that today. Worth
hoarding money, not hiring. They're too efficient.
The RNC has on their website today. They have a new ad out called "Change Direction," making the argument against Barack Obama.
Good. Look at you doing
always a flag.
Always a flag. Kevin Madden, Karen Finney, Perry Bacon, a great panel. That's it for this edition of the Daily Rundown.